And we're back with the show, Gerald Glassford, once again for the PCC Multiverse. You know, we usually don't like to go back in time when we're talking about everything in pop culture. We usually like to talk about a lot of things in the here and now as we go ahead and we talk about all the latest news and trends in pop culture. But every now and then we like to look back on great moments in pop culture history. And at the time of this recording, 20 years ago, there was a great moment in pop culture history. It was the Hell in the Cell match at the King of the Ring in 1998. It was truly an awesome event as Mankind faced off against The Undertaker. And, well, for people talk about it being the best match they've ever seen, a truly tremendous spectacle. Some people say it might have been something else, but whatever you may think about the actual match itself, it's truly one of the most memorable moments in professional wrestling history. And here to talk with me about it today is none other than the man, or one of the guys behind the Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. You got to check it out today on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere you can get your podcasts. It is truly, as I always say, one of the best places to go for intelligent pro wrestling talk. It's my good friend, Billy Donnelly. What's up, man? How you doing?
How goes it, dude?
Oh, it's another day in paradise here in Vegas. But like I said, I usually talk about current events, what's going on in pop culture and all that normally. But being that, the anniversary was coming up on us real quick here. And then also the fact that I'm still to this day a huge Mick Foley fan, or Mark, as they say in the business. It is truly one of the most memorable moments for many a wrestling fan that not only lived and experienced through the Attitude Era, but also just for pretty much anybody else that has seen that era of time. It's one of the most memorable matches of that period of time as well.
Yeah, I mean, that one is it's probably one of the most recognizable matches in wrestling history. It was really sort of a landmark match in wrestling history, especially during the Attitude Era of the WWE/WWF. And I mean, the match itself created a legacy for both its participants as well as for the match itself. The Hell in the Cell match, that was really only the third Hell in a Cell match to that point, and really propelled the Hell in a Cell match to be something of note and of particular importance from that point moving forward. And really, Mick Foley, who had already been around for quite some time as Cactus Jack in the wrestling industry, as well as Mankind for a little while in the WWE, that really put Mick Foley on the map in a much larger scale than he had been previously in his career. And let's face it, The Undertaker, who has always been The Undertaker, this was just another sort of real major moment in his long historic career as well. So the various components that make up this Hell in a Cell match that took place at King of the Ring in Pittsburgh that year, I mean, it really has... It is a match that people have come to recognize, and sort of the match itself just has its own history.
That it does. And there's reasons why that is. If you actually look at Hell in a Cell matches as a quality, as a whole, there were probably better ones that you could probably say and list out. The previous Hell in a Cell match with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker was quite good, and probably as a technical match, probably a little bit better than this match that we're talking about now. Maybe you could say even the Triple H Mick Foley match later, a couple years down the line, was better than what we saw here as well. But when it comes to Undertaker and Mankind in this particular match, the reasons why it has become so memorable, and if you get a chance, check it out on either the WWE Network, YouTube, or wherever you can get your wrestling videos. You've got to check it out if you have not already, is because of the great lengths taken to not only entertain the fans. Some of it was planned and some of it was not, correct?
I mean, the main component of this match is how one guy doesn't die. I mean, that's really the main draw of this match, because I mean, the majority of this match isn't even really a match. The match begins on top of the cell. Mankind is the first one who comes down to the ring and immediately scales the cage and climbs up on top of the cell and starts the match on top of the Hell in the Cell. And then the Undertaker comes down and follows it. Now, once again, this is really early on in the beginning of the Hell in the Cell, which is sort of indicative of how this match turns out, is that they had this idea but also didn't really know what the hell they were doing, and so it was a regular size cage as opposed to the cell now, which is almost double in size to the cell that they were using then. So nothing like this would really happen now, or someone would have serious injury. I mean, I know recently Shane McMahon took a leap off a Hell in a Cell, but there was also like a stunt crash bag beneath his landing spot to make it safe. There was no such precautions taken here when the Undertaker throws Mankind off of the top of the Hell in the Cell to start the match.
And this was something that Mick Foley thought of doing and actually wanted to participate in. Is that correct?
I mean, he was like, I think I should start on top. And he went up there and, I mean,
basically told Undertaker right there, just throw me. He called the spot right there.
I mean, look, it's a dangerous thing for anyone to do, for to be thrown, 15 feet in the air, crashing down between a breakaway announce table and the padding that's beneath it. That's not something that anyone should ever plan to do, but this was going to be their way to sort of make their own mark. And so there was a lot of question as to how Mick Foley reacted to it, how he took the impact from this, because it's a long fall period, and Jim Ross is there and Jerry the King is there and they're helping sell this, and Terry Funk is there helping to sell this, and a lot of people were concerned for Mick Foley's well-being when this happened. And so before the match even technically starts, the match for all intents and purposes is basically over, and until they're starting to wheel Mankind away, and he decides that he's going to get off the stretcher and climb up the cage again and go up top. And once again, this also goes back to showing just how much they didn't know what the hell they were doing, is that basically the roof on this cell was just zip tied to the framing, because if you ever go back and rewatch this match, you'll hear and see the roof of the cage just sort of breaking away from the framework, because it can't support the weight of these two guys up there. So, which is why when the Undertaker choke slams Mick Foley and the roof of the cage breaks free, and he falls down to the ring canvas, on top of the fact that he gets smacked in the face with a chair on the way down, and basically knocks a tooth right out of his gums that comes through his nose and is hanging out in his beard. I mean, it's all ridiculous. But it's something that we'll all remember, because they thought Mick Foley might be seriously injured when he went down to the canvas. And he was, if I'm not mistaken, he actually dislocated his jaw partially when he landed. But you add all of that, and then there were thumbtacks at the end of the match as well. So, I mean, this is plunder and carnage and wreckage. This is a demolition derby of a wrestling match. And I think that's why people like it, is because they had never seen anything like this before, even though there's a long legacy of like death matches and real brutal stuff that's taken place over the course of wrestling history in the past. This was it on a mainstream level, and involving a company that was sort of universally known by both casual and hardcore wrestling fans, and talents that people would become familiar with too. So the fact that it was done on such a mainstream level, I think that's one of the things that really etched it in people's minds for as long as it's been, to the point where now, all these years later, we're still talking about this match.
We indeed are. Once again, it is Billy Donnelly from Intelligent Wrestling Conversation. You got to check out his awesome program each and every week when it hits SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and virtually every other podcast outlet. It is something a professional wrestling fan cannot afford to miss. I will tell you, Billy, that when I saw the match initially firsthand around that time, I was just amazed that, I've, as someone who has been a Mick Foley fan since the 80s, I've seen him go to great lengths to entertain the audience and have him take tremendous risks on a personal level for him on numerous occasions, whether it's his back, his hip, his head, so many times. But this seemed to just, for me as someone who's been such a great fan over the years, really put it over the top as far as concern for his health and well-being. On that initial throw off the cage, you could see the damage that was done as far as concussion. Well, actually, he might have had the concussion there, or when he got hit by the chair and when he fell, simultaneously slamming onto the ring later on. But you could see the damage to his shoulder, internal injuries there upon his first initial fall. Then when it's compounded by a second initial fall, almost as the length of it is almost as deep, and just truly with the chair, the added punishment of getting hit by a chair simultaneously, just compounded onto that. Like you said, teeth knocked out, jaw dislocated, possible jaw damage, going through the nose with that tooth, a concussion, and so much more. Obviously, it helped accelerate the end of his career as a top-level performer. It did, however, help him as far as in the eyes of Vince McMahon to the lengths he was going to go to entertain audiences. And between you and me, I think that's probably one of the main reasons why he was afforded the opportunity to go ahead and become a two-time WWE champion, because the people were really behind him, especially after that match. But knowing all that he went through and knowing how famous that match is now throughout history, your thoughts looking back on it now as far as the outcome of what Mick Foley's life and career was after the Hell in a Cell 20 years ago.
Well, I mean, this match really put him on the map in terms of the WWE was concerned, and allowed him to sort of reach heights that he probably wasn't ever going to hit in the WWE, whether it was as Dude Love or as Mankind or bringing back Cactus Jack or as, or just as Mick Foley. Having the three faces of Foley, allowed him to really sort of this put him on a different tier than I think he was ever saw to be at. And the Undertaker was the Undertaker, so like this just cemented further what the Undertaker was capable of in his overall legacy in the WWE. But when it comes to Mankind or Mick Foley rather, I think this is the match that really put him in a lot of people's eyes and say, oh wow, this guy is. We need to keep an eye on this guy, because who knows what this guy is going to do next. And that's really, I think, the key component of that was built around Mick Foley in the WWE, is that you never knew what to expect from him next. And that's why he became very much a must-see figure, is because he was super unpredictable, and you had to tune in to see what was going to come next from him, because it was never going to be formulaic in any way, shape, or form. So, looking back, this is a match that probably never should have happened, never should have unfolded the way it did. What the course of wrestling history would be like if it never existed, I don't know. I've shown my kid this match. He was taken aback by it because he couldn't believe it went down like this. But it's wrestling is made of moments, and there are different things along the way that will stick with you and you will always remember. And this Hell in a Cell match is one of those that it would be nearly impossible for you to ever forget. having laid eyes on it.
I couldn't agree with you more, and definitely that's my same sentiments as well, because Hell in a Cell, for better or worse, is one of the true pinnacle moments of Mick Foley's career, and the reason, well, excuse me, and one of the main reasons why he's so well thought of even to this day. Before we head on out, my friend, I gotta know, and you gotta share it to everyone out there why your show, Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, is a cannot miss podcast if you are a professional wrestling fan.
I mean, because it's intelligent and it's conversation about wrestling. Period. We're not smart marks. We're not trying to bitch and moan about Roman Reigns or why this guy's not getting pushed or how that storyline sucked. We talk about a lot of things. We try to put it in context from an intelligent perspective. Talk a lot about New Japan Pro Wrestling as well. So it's not just us sitting around talking about Raw or SmackDown and why this week's show is disappointing. We try to run the gamut of all sorts of wrestling to bring things to your radar that you might not be familiar with, but also talk about it in a smart fashion, not just as fanboys who are bitching about things we don't like. So if you consider yourself to be a wrestling fan who has some degree of intelligence, then this show is for you because it's right in the title. So it's pretty self-explanatory.
It is Intelligent Wrestling Conversation, and you can catch it today on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, the new Google Play app, and so many other different podcast outlets. Billy, it's been great having you on the show. I do want to ask you to, hopefully I can get you on as it gets closer, because there is one of the, well, I'm going to actually say it right now, in my opinion, one of the largest and most momentous occasions for the independent wrestling scene in this century is coming up very soon. It's called All In, and hopefully I can get you back on the show if you have time to talk more about that as it gets closer to that show, because I would love to chat to you about how this thing all came about and what's the future for possibly for another All In going forward. Billy,
I'm definitely all in for All In, so we'll make that happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome indeed. Billy, it's been always great having you on. Billy, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and it's always great to have you a part of the pop culture cosmos.